Okay. Great Garvey days, brothers and sisters. Today we shall be reading from lesson 4, elocution from Message to the People, a course of African philosophy. Elocution means to speak out. That it that is to say, if you have a tale to tell, tell it and tell it well. The idea of speaking is to convey information to others. Therefore, you must speak so that they might hear you. You must speak with dignity, eloquence, clearness, and distinctiveness. You must speak to be understood in the language you speak. You must carry emphasis when you speak. To be a good elocutionist, you must embody in yourself clearness of thought, expression, and action. First, you must feel what you speak, and as you feel it, express it in like manner. If you feel the enthusiasm of a thing, express it with enthusiasm. Speech and truth should be just your feelings on all things. If you speak coldly or without emphasis, it is because you feel coldly and not moved to the action. Every man who is not tongue tied by nature can speak. God gave him a voice for that purpose. Therefore, if you have anything to say, say it out loud so that others may hear you. In addressing a crowd of people in a small room, you must raise your voice to reach the person furthest away from you in the room. If you are addressing 100 people, you should raise your voice loud enough in expressing yourself so that the person sitting furthest away from you will hear your every word distinctively and in like manner. If you have an audience of 1,000, 2,000, or 5,000, if you stand up on a platform in front of an audience or 1,000 and address them in the voice you would use for an audience 12 feet by 12 feet, the people 12 feet away from you will not hear you, and those furthest away from you will have to strain their ears to hear and understand you. They will become disgusted and walk out on you. When you have an audience, you must make an effort for everyone in the audience to hear you distinctively. You must pronounce your words correctly for them to understand what you say. You must not run your words into each other. You must make your words clear and distinct. You must not rush your sentences, but speak in short sentences that carry clear thought so that everyone will be able to follow and understand what you say. The idea of listening is to hear. When the audience doesn't hear every word of the speaker has failed to make a complete impression upon his audience. Probably the very thought he would like to leave is not sufficiently distinct and clear as to be heard, therefore, the speech is in vain. Always speak in words that your audience understand. Never try to speak above your audience's head because it will be a waste of time. Nobody will understand you. The important thing in speaking is to be understood. First, always think of what you are going to say before you say it. Otherwise, you'll be regarded as a fool talking nonsense. In a speech where you start a sentence, always complete it. Never speak in long sentences because people cannot remember long sentences. When you are delivering a speech, do so with emotion so that you feel what you are saying. Do not stand in one place like a mummy. People will think you are planted there. Put action behind your feelings and move as your feelings direct. If you are honest in what you are saying, you will feel it and it will move you. Always be enthusiastic about your subject. The way to do that is to know it well. Make your hands, feet, and eyes give expression to your thoughts. Never express what is supposed to be an inspirational thought without giving it first expression to the thought. You can do that by the movement of your body, according to the response of your enthusiasm. You must hypnotize your audience by expression. Stare into their eyes and firmly express yourself. You must not shiver from their glare. You must take their shiver from yours. In that you will subjugate them and you will make them do what you want. This is made possible by your honesty of purpose and confidence in yourself. If you are telling a lie, you cannot subdue everybody or anybody who is looking straight at you, because they will see the lie in your eyes. If you have to tell a lie, don't look at anyone. Your eyes will betray you. Whenever you see a speaker look away from the crowd into the ceiling or at the walls, he is usually telling a lie. A person who is always facing his audience is never afraid of the truth. Speak forcefully, always, particularly at the beginning, middle, and end of your speech. Start off in a low tone, then 5 minutes afterwards, raise your voice gradually until you reach a convincing point in your speech. Then you may rest by lowering your tone, raise it again to renew interest. Continue the same way until you are about to reach the end. Then redouble your efforts and win everybody over to you on what you are speaking about. This is called your climax. Always sit down with emphasis after you have made your speech and then rise again. Do this to anything else. If you have more to do, don't let the people believe that all your efforts were just to get a collection. If you lift the collection at the same time you make your speech, they will think so. Lift the collection immediately after the speech. If you have made a good speech before up to the end, they will listen to you. Even making a speech about the collection. If the speech was no good, you will have no good collection. To speak properly, you must have good sound teeth. You must have clear nostrils. Your lungs must be sound. You must have a healthy chest. Your stomach must not be over full and you must not be hungry. Never try to make a speech on a hungry stomach. You may faint and die before you are finished. If you have nasal obstruction, go to the doctor and have it corrected. If you are suffering from lung trouble, see the doctor. To be able to make a speech for an hour or an hour or hour and a half or 2 hours, you must treat and train your constitution. Your chest is the most serious part to be affected. If you don't have a strong chest, you will feel exhausted in attempting to make a long speech. To prevent this, eat as many eggs as possible. You should eat eggs at least once a day, not hard but soft boiled or raw if you can stand it. This will strengthen your chest, and after a time, it will become so hardened that you will speak 5 or 6 hours without feeling it. This must be done regularly. As long as you are going to indulge in public speaking, you must eat eggs. You should also develop the disposition to drink water and sip it at intervals. If your throat becomes thirsty and dry, it is the most difficult thing to speak with a dry throat. All the straining you will do will be of no effect because your words will become monotonous. There will be no harmony and rhythm. Soften your palate with water and back the bring back the music to your voice. You must never speak in a monotonous tone. Speaking is really like music in another way. You must strike the different notes, play the different notes, and let the people hear the sound and the harmony. This is done by giving each word its proper note, sound, and emphasis. You must strike the right accord. For goodness sake, always speak out. Always speak loud enough for others to hear you unless you have something to hide. The desire is to be heard and let them hear you. Most preachers fail because their congregations do not hear them, especially Anglican preachers, Negro Baptist preachers, and AME. Preachers can raise more money than any other preachers because they talk loud enough to be heard and have more emotion in their expression than other preachers. This is a hint. Such preachers are always fat because they always have responsive congregations due to their ability to reach the congregation in telling them that what they want. If you want anything told, tell it and tell it well so that nobody will misunderstand. You must open your mouth and not be afraid of doing so unless you have only gums and are afraid of people seeing the nakedness of your mouth. Always try to avoid a cold because it is ruinous to any speaker. Whenever you catch one, you have to speak. Go to the drugstore immediately and secure some speakers tablets to clear away the plugum. Is that phlegm? Okay, it is good to use elocutions for inhaling to keep the nostrils clear so that you will have a perfect sound to your words. Don't chew your words. Talk them out plainly, otherwise, you will have to understand what you mean. Practice speaking to yourself in your room, in your own hall, drawing room, or in any place where you will not be disturbed. Go to the sea, beach, or the woods and talk to yourself or to nature to practice so that you will command your expression and you will become accustomed to speaking. Never be afraid of your audience. If you know your subject well, you have no cause to be afraid. Always know your subject. Never make a long speech after 10 o'clock at night. People will become restless and move on because it's near bedtime. If you are called upon to speak at 10 o'clock or after, take, take no more than 15 minutes. If you are to speak anywhere, see to it that you are not called later than 9:30. At a certain hour of night, people are restless and tired and generally want to go home. They are never inclined to listen to speeches. Never apologize for any other speaker being better than you. Just rise to the occasion and try to beat the last man. Let the audience judge. If you confess that any speaker is better than you are, even though they are better, the audience may still give the credit to the other man because you said so by running down your own ability. Always see that your clothing is properly arranged before you get on any platform. Otherwise, many people may see things to laugh at. Be careful not to make blunders in grammar because people may laugh loudly and expose you to others who are not thinking. You should not make any mistake in pronouncing your words because that also invites amusement for certain people. If they remember nothing else, they remember such mistakes and ever talk about them and create prejudice against you for it. So be careful. When speaking, you should always try to hold the people's interest in the best way you know. You may give a joke that is relevant or logical in emphasizing your point. Never give vulgar jokes. To be a good speaker or elocutionist, it is to hold a grand prize among men. If you can speak better than others and have a natural lead among them, glory in this and strive after it. Remember, God gave you a mouth and a voice, and you must use them for good results. Secure from any bookseller a copy of a good book on elocution and study it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, ends lesson 4 on elocution. The floor is open for people to chime in and talk about certain key points that they have learned in this lesson 4 called elocution.
Yes, give thanks for that, brother Raise first. Great reading. Great reading, brother. In terms of what stood out for me is when you speak, you must speak clear and distinct in whatever you're saying. Tell the truth because the audience can tell when you're lying. If you keep looking around the place, You know, people can feel the truth when you speak the truth. Oh, greetings, Mr. President. I've added you to the call.
Yes, sir.
Great
Got a
God.
great Garvey Day to you.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
great Garvey Day, Mr. President.
Yes, sir. Great Garvey Day. First race.
Raise first.
First
Great
race.
Derby Day, Mr. President.
Or race first.
There we go.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, great Garvey Day. Sister, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm perfect, if not better, on the case for the race.
Love
Yes,
that.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, yes, yes.
So we were just talking about what stood out to us on this chapter, and I was just saying that you know, be honest in what you're saying, because you will feel it, and it will move you.
Yeah.
You
Oh
know what I mean?
yeah.
You know,
Hmm.
if you have to tell a lie, it says don't look at anybody because your eyes will betray you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that part too, because Mr. Garvey covered a lot in a very small chapter. And again, when we look at this book, um, what we're actually looking at is, it was an accelerated course that he taught to some of the leaders in the UNIA. Excuse me while I adjust my camera here. But he spoke or gave these lessons to people who were already somewhat advanced in speaking and traveling, organizing. People who had been in the organization, who had led divisions 40,000 members strong, who had traveled the world, etc. So these were already advanced speakers. So some things he could say in um, a certain kind of way they already were familiar with. But when it comes to elocution, there's a lot involved in that process, tons of it. And he speaks to a lot of it. One he speaks to, like for, example, he was talking about the health of the elocutionist. What you eat, but sometimes what you drink affects your voice.
Yes, sir.
Whether you're sick, whether you look healthy, when speaking makes a difference. All the difference in the world. Also, as well as your appearance. How you dress. Are you your clothes wrinkly? You got stains on your shirt. Are you coming there like you professional speaker? Are you coming looking like you just kicking the bobo with some people? Are you coming well groomed? Your hair done? Are you or whatever? What are you appearing as? Even how you present your propaganda. Your posters, are they kind of lackluster, or do they really show the good graphics, the powerful words? Mr. Garvey used to come some places and speak, turn everybody out just because he put on there the world's greatest orator is coming to town. And they're like, what? A lot of people got egos. And they said, what? Who does he think he is in the greatest orator? We're going to check this guy out. But just because of how everything was coming, he's dressed to the T immaculately, has the, handkerchief in the pocket, ready, he got his buttons, he got his sash, he's, looking good. People want to hear what he has to say, but all
Guys,
that matters when
can you
you're,
no give me a bit energy, please?
Sister.
Sorry, apologies. My daughter just came in front of me. Sorry, I'm on live. Sorry.
no problem, no problem. Yeah, so I mean, all that, your appearance, your health, even your timing. Not only what time of day will you speak, it will make a difference. Some people are tired, working all day. If you deliver a late night message, it's not going to resonate as much as it would if you pick the more, appropriate hour. Same thing, the timing in your speech. How people speak sometimes. If you're, some people you can talk to, if you have only 5 minutes and you got to put a lot of, information in, and you try to speak fast but enunciately enough that people can understand, and pronounce your words properly and make sure they get it, because you don't want to be talking real fast and be everybody understand what you're saying and be like, oh, slow down, I don't get it. Sometimes even when you speak, like if I were to speak in Jamaica, I can't speak as fast as I may normally speak, because them got a certain way of talking, and them they trying to adjust their ear to my accent, and I'm trying to adjust my ear, and if I just run and talk, and say this and the other, it's going to throw them off a little bit. So I have to speak with a little more stress and modulate how and when I say certain things, and sometimes I gesticulate a little more so that, when I speak to them, they'll understand what I'm talking about. Not that their English is bad or off or different, but it's just, the accent sometimes makes you want to speak at a different pace. So you give them time to process some information, etc. So, I mean, all those little things about timing. You notice some speakers, if you look at great elocutionists, some people are horrible writers, but they're great speakers. So some people will speak slow. Like you notice, like a Dr. Clark, when he speaks, he doesn't talk fast like a Dr. Umar, who will run, talk, and say this and do this, and do that. And he has a certain hype to it when he say things. But Dr. Clark will speak very cautiously, and his words will have you hanging on every line. And
Yes,
you
sir.
wonder how's his style so different, yet both resonate so well and hit, so perfectly with their audience. But it's a lot in how and when in the way you put words together. Sometimes, like Dr. Clark talked about if you're a captor and enslaver, looks like you're a Lord and Savior, then you're the greatest weapon in your own demise, or something like that. But his words are so powerful that they just, short and pithy when he delivers slow. Yet some people, like Mr. Garvey, in some ways was considered the first great motivational speaker, Black motivational speaker particularly. So to speak in such a way that your audience, because crowd psychology is important. Knowing what they know or don't know, or what they're thinking about and not thinking about matters. And when you deliver an execution, so you want to make sure you speak to something that they can relate to. So even I even on occasion would go in a certain crowd of people, and I can talk to one group of people while also kind of talking around another group of people in the same audience. And it's kind of funny when you see the reaction. I remember one time I spoke at Layman's College in New York, and it was a bunch of faculty members there. It's a lot of Europeans who were kind of wondering what I was going to say and whether I was going to be able to relate to the audience, etc. So, I started meeting people before they, as they were coming in, kind of found out who the crowd was. And, so, I remember I started off just by teaching them about Mr. Garvey and his influence on the culture, etc. So I just started off by saying, emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. Then waited for them to respond, and all the crowd, except for the white faculty people, responded, none but ourselves will free our mind. And they were like looking around, like, how did these people know what to say? Did he prepare them? But it's just the way you do certain things. People can connect to it differently if you know your audience. And Mr. Garvey even used to look in the audience. And, if he was going to deliver a speech on, like reclaiming the fallen or something in particular, he would look at a brother or sister who may not be doing that well. You can tell they may be struggling. And he kind of, looking and examining, relating how they may respond to his message. And he kind of tailors the message toward that community, that hey, look at, some of our sisters are going through this and that and the other, and be looking at them and kind of focusing his mind on, what this single mother with all these children and husband's not doing what he's supposed to do, and she's struggling, and this brother over here, he had hard times after the war and all this, and he can just relate to the people and speak kind of, to them in such a way that it really resonates deeply with everyone as he, speaks to the crowd. But all that's important in how you frame your conversation when you talk to people, even the volume of how you speak. At times people, when they going, like, it's almost like music, like a crescendo sometimes when you're speaking. If you want to speak in such a way, because this is, it's not, some people make it seem like it's theatrical, but it's really more of a art to communicating than it is, some kind of, staged performance. But sometimes, the certain motivational speakers, they start off slow And then they start getting faster, and then they get faster, and they get louder. And the more they say things, the louder they get. The more people, kind of get pumped up and excited. And if it's connected with them, relating to what they feel, and man, you can have a powerful, reaction inside, and that'll motivate, people to do work. But it's about style and about, timing and knowing your audience. If you got a conservative crowd, you don't want to be screaming in their face all day. But certain other folks who easily lose attention, you kind of want to grab their attention while you have it and keep it as long as possible. So how long you speak, etc. Matters. So anyway, all these things are important as we develop elocution. We had some of the greatest elocutionists of all time in the UNIA. Henrietta Davis was world renowned for her elocution. She was a Shakespearean actor. She was used to do not only plays, she used to write plays. She was traveling, organizing. She had a what's this thing? It was kind of like a confraternity. She had the Loyal Orders of Lady and Knights of Malachite. And anyway, she used to perform. She had theater companies all over Jamaica, Chicago, Washington. Everywhere she traveled, she was, performing and doing things. So she was one of the great draws to the UNIA in its early days, in many ways. So, it's kind of like I used to tell folks sometimes that when Mr. Garvey first started speaking and he was traveling with Henrietta Vinton Davis, she was the big name on the marquee and he was the little name because they didn't know him yet. So it's sort of like if Sade and Mortimer were to go speaking in the UK, people not so much coming to see Mortimer. They want to see Sade. So everything is important, how you package things. And once you have that opportunity to speak to them, then you make it count. And next time they won't care so much about Sade having to be with you. But anyway, all these things are important when it comes to presenting your argument. And, it's important too I remember this article I read some years ago. It was entitled "Sleeping in Church, Who is to Blame?" And when they talked about, it was a pastor who was talking about many people, pastors get upset when their parishioners are sleeping in church. But he don't blame the parishioners, he blamed the pastors for their boring speeches, for not knowing how to deliver it properly. In fact, he said if many of these pastors were car salesmen, they'd be starving. They wouldn't know how to sell, anything. As one of my elders would say, he couldn't lead a swarm of flies to a pile of crap. So when they come to speak, they get no one's attention. People are bored, ready to leave, and they get nothing out of what they're saying because of how they're saying it. They don't have the enthusiasm of what they're saying. So if you don't care, why should I care about your subject? So it's a lot in how you present things that makes a world of difference to people. And so we should try our best to present as powerfully and as effectively as possible our message and program so that people really can understand it and take interest in it. Hopefully that'll be the spark that is necessary to start the inferno.
Yes, sir. I was just thinking that when you mentioned Brother Umar, I was just thinking of why Dr. Khalid was so successful as a speaker, because he was entertaining as well as he gave information. He also gave inspiration, and I think that's what makes Dr. Khalid, one of the great speakers that we've had in our era. Dr. Umar is a good speaker also. He makes little jokes here and there. He's not too vulgar, as the chapter was saying. You may give a joke that is relevant or logical, but never give vulgar jokes. Do you know what I'm saying? In terms of when you're delivering speeches, we have our brother Nat on viewing. He's a presentator on Galaxy Radio. So this chapter may be good for you as well, brother, to flip over again and go through. You know what I'm saying? Because there's a skill, there's an art to doing this. Like the best speakers that we have, they're very good at reaching the people when they speak. They're very good at capturing the the minds of our people. And if you're going to speak, you got to be able to capture the minds of the people, you know, and never, and it goes back to the other topic that we read where it was saying, never speak on something you don't know. When you're speaking about something that you know, it's easier for you to be more free. You're not going to be stiff in what you're talking about. You can be free. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. For me, I think other than the Honourable Marcus Garvey, Dr. Khaled for me is my favorite speaker. You know, and I think his seriousness, his uncompromising spirit, you know, these things there what makes him stand out to me. I don't know what the brothers and sisters favorite speakers are, but for me, that's kind of where I'm at with it. The elder back. So yeah, I was just saying, elder, that, you know, I like Dr. Khaled other than the Honourable Marcus Garvey as the best speaker we've ever had. I also enjoy Dr. Khaled for the way how he delivered his message. He was very strong. You know, he knew what he was saying. He believed him. The greatest thing for me is that he believed in what he's saying. Many speakers speak and you don't feel it. It doesn't resonate with you. It's like they're just regurgitating something. They don't believe. There's no spirit to what they're saying. There's no vibration when they're speaking. And I think it's because they don't believe it 100%. Because when you believe something, you're passionate. You can hear the passion of the speaker when the speaker is speaking. So you're right. It is a gift to speak and get the attention of the crowd. It really is a gift. You know, they don't call me the sinister minister for no reason, but you know, we're able to reach the people sometimes. Not every time. I've gone to places. I'll give you an example. I remember one time, yeah, I've gone to a speech in Birmingham and I didn't read the crowd. So I've gone there with my notes of what I'm gonna speak. But what I should have done is switch the play and delivered a different speech because of the crowd where I was. But I was just like, you know what? I'm out of my area. I've come to this area. I'm gonna be strong. I'm gonna be uncompromised, and I'm gonna deliver this message. But I could have delivered the same message but differently. And I think that is another skill, to be able to read the crowd and know what to deliver to that crowd. Because you know, you go to a church, there's a lot of food. Elder, I'm gonna mute this because there's a lot of feedback coming back from your. There we go. So yeah, I was saying that, you know, you got to be able to read the crowd and say, okay, then if I was to go to a church, you know, I'm gonna have to deliver my message slightly different. I can get the same result, but the way I'm gonna deliver the message to my grandma, my granddad, and auntie and uncle is gonna be different to the way I'm gonna deliver the message to the man on the block. So it's about being tactful in the way you deliver your message to the people, you know. So that's one thing that if I had stuck to the code of this book, I wouldn't have made that mistake. And I haven't been invited back here to that event ever since. And I don't think I said anything wrong. I just think I was too strong for the crowd. You know, sometimes you can. I was, you know, I came there. Had my security. We had, we was on point. We looked the part. We look. No, I'll be honest with you. We look beautiful up there. But it scared the people. Like, we actually scared the people that day. The people were kind of petrified of the sinister minister that day, and I could have done it a bit different. You know, if I looking back, if I stuck to the code of the message to the people, I would have delivered my message slightly different that day, and I would have got a better response from the people. Which ultimately, every time we go out to speak, we want to get a response from the people. We're not just speaking for speaking's sake. There's a reason why we're speaking, and it is to reach our people, reach the hearts and minds of our people. If we're collecting for something, then we're collecting for something. If we're mobilizing, then we're mobilizing. If we're seeking finance or, you know, solidarity with our people, we have to be able to reach them. And brother Nat in the comments, he mentioned Amos Wilson. Yeah, Amos Wilson was a brilliant brother. You know, the way how he did it. But he's, you know, sometimes there's different kind of speakers. Like, you have teachers. I would look at Amos Wilson as one of our greatest teachers. The way he was like a lecturer when Amos Wilson spoke. But Khaled wasn't so much a lecturer. He was giving you information like a lecturer, but he was delivering it slightly different. But Amos Wilson, man, brilliant elder. You know, rest the spirit of our elder Amos Wilson. Most definitely. But yeah, we have another elder on the call, Shaka Baraka. Great Garvey Day to you, sir.
Great garbage day to you and all the brothers and sisters that are gathered. The name is Barak. You say Baraka.
No, why? My friend's called Baraka, you know. My apologies. So
No problem.
it spells the same way as you also.
Oh, okay. Barak.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, Morima told me you all were gathering. And let me see. Is that every Sunday?
Yes, sir.
You do?
Every Sunday.
Okay, that's kind of like the UNIA. Under the leadership of the Honorable Marcus Garvey and my mentor, the Honorable Charles L. James, we met every week. We built our treasury up because we lifted an offering every week. We had a variety of things that you could contribute to. We had the general fund, we had the charity fund, and then when we talked about a building, we had a building fund. So our secretary was the executive secretary that was actually made an executive secretary by the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, Sister Estelle James. And she would collect money every week. And whatever you had to donate, whatever dues you had, or whatever part of the dues you had, she would take that and mark that in your dues book. And so I still have my books from when she took care of our donations, and we built up a sizable treasury because we met every week. We always lift the offerings, and then we also had other mass meetings and other programs and business meetings. So um, that is an economic factor inside of the UNIA. It's kind of built in that you would lift an offering, and certainly as you expand and you collect dues, that goes into your coffers as well. And the Honorable Marcus Garvey said, find out what your neighbors need in the community and want, and then see if you can supply those things that they want and need. So we can easily get involved with a economic program to deal with self-help and self-reliance just by simply looking around and seeing what people want and need and figuring out how to supply that. Or if you're a master merchant, if you're a master salesperson, then you can take an item that they may not want and they may not need. But when you present the item to them, you use persuasion, you use the ability to create desire by making whatever the item is so appealing to the person, make it look so good to the person, make them see a benefit that they had never considered before, that they could use the item for, until you have created a desire and they will buy the item though they had never intended to. You might have just met them that day. You might have knocked on their door and you had the item and they allowed you to tell them about the item. And then you started using what is also called sales technique to be able to close people on buying the item by overcoming whatever objections they might have to buying the item, having them look at another way in terms of the more reasons to buy as opposed to the reasons against buying. But in the course of African philosophy, he said you can even sell pencils if that's all you have. Then you buy you a dozen pencils and you go out, and if you pay a 50 cents for a dozen pencils, at the end of the hour or day or whatever, you sold them and made a profit on them, you buy some more pencils, or maybe pens the next time, or maybe pens and paper, or maybe, clothing, whatever. But that's my little contribution to the discussion of economics.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. I mean, speak a little bit to what uh, Brother Shaka was pointing out, um, dealing, with elocution. Um, a lot of what we talk about when we speak about elocution has a lot to do with the way you speak, the logic of your argument. Sometimes, if you have a sense of urgency when we're talking about a particular problem and a solution, it's not enough to be abstract and talk about as if we have forever to fix certain problems. Because sometimes there's a closing window, and if we don't act now, then it's going to be some consequences to that. So stressing the urgency of the message is important. Also, sometimes when you want to gauge your audience's participation, it's good to have some degree of call and response. Some speakers I know, one of my favorite earlier speakers when I was first studying African fundamentalism, he used to deliberately incomplete a sentence and then want you to finish the sentence for him. So he would speak in such a way and say, "We need to do this by any means what necessary, right?" And then and he kind of makes sure they following along with him. But sometimes getting them involved in the conversation, or even just starting with a piercing question, like Malcolm X used to sometimes come to an audience and just pose a philosophical question. Why is it that so few white people rule so many black people? This should be the question you'd want to know. And once people start thinking, yeah, why are we in this position? How can we get out of this position? What is it going to take? Now their brains starting to fire up and now they're ready for the answer, so, sometimes that's important also, as you speak, and, also, living the life that you are articulating. It's very unconvincing to have a man who don't have a dollar in his pocket telling you about finance and economics. He's broke and bumming and look like he ain't had a good meal in some time, and he's telling you about how to get wealthy and get yourself together. I say, man, it don't work for you. Why is it gonna work for me? That's hypocritical. So you want to present what you are teaching and have some experience in practicing what you actually are teaching, or else the audience is going to pick up on it pretty quickly. And I was listening to you talk about the sinister minister. Because they used to call me a militant minister back in the day. So I kind of relate to that title, brother minister. But yeah, sometimes when you do go to a certain audience, you got to really gauge that audience as far as judging their interests. Sometimes Mr. Garvey would, because he understood the religions of the world, he understood different people with different levels of, educational training, background, etc., cultural orientation. He was able to deliver a message that resonates with different people in a different form. He went in one day in Washington. He spoke at, I think it was 4 different locations in a day. Once was at a university, one was at a Baptist church, another one was at AME church, etc. But if you know the history of, say, the Richard Allen and the AME and some of their types of gospel songs that they sing versus the Baptist church, and who some of the people who were amongst the Baptist tradition that would do and say certain things a different way, as well as understanding those who have the scholastic background and who you can do a whole lot of splitting verbs and talking a certain kind of way around educated people, but they're not going to grasp the message the same way. So you have to present in a different kind of way sometimes. But the more familiar you are with the people and a little bit about their background, if I want to make a message over to a church crowd, I may quote a scripture or two. You know, I may speak about things in a way that they can relate to, and conveying African redemption as a divine injunction by the Almighty. You know, that He created on this earth all races, all peoples, and He gave Europe to the Europeans, Africa to Africa, and we have our own vine and fig tree, which is the continent of Africa. And so, if we had these things taken from us, then it's only divine right that we get them back. And the church crowd can say, well, that makes sense, and they can follow along with the logic a little better than, say, someone else who may not care so much about certain spiritual values, etc. But every message, if it's logical and intelligent, can be delivered effectively to different people if you just kind of familiar with the audience you're speaking to. That's that's the best way for jokes. But sometimes humor will resonate, and hit over well. Sometimes people are not familiar with the background of the joke you're talking about, so they kind of don't get it, and you're only humoring yourself. You'll
Let me
find
say something, Brother Morma, about elocution. Sometimes brothers and sisters, when they hear me talk or speak, they'll say, I use good elocution, I have oratorical skills, I speak very well. And I have to let them know that this didn't come from birth. About 40 years ago, when I started reading the teachings of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, I would buy a cassette recorder. I would read his teachings, his writings, his speeches onto this cassette recorder so that I could listen to his teachings while I was in bed, while I was driving in my car, and under many different circumstances, because I would play this tape recorder. Now I'm dating myself because you all don't use that today. You use your phones. But what happened was, because his speeches were so long, it required me to read them fast, speedily, because I would run out of tape if I tried to record his speeches and do that slowly. So I found myself becoming more articulate by doing that. I found myself being able to put a large amount of information on these tapes because I could read real fast. Reading and practicing reading a large volume of words, and especially the Honorable Marcus Garvey speeches, does two things. One, it helps your articulation, or as it says, elocution is a study of formal speaking in pronunciation, grammar, style, and tone, as well as the idea and practice of effective speech and its forms. So I would practice this way by reading his speeches into the recorder and then being able to play that back. Sometimes I would play it back while I was sleeping. When I retired for the evening, I would take the speech, I would put my headphones on, so at night I could fall asleep listening to his speeches. And just to give you an example, when I studied African fundamentalism at the back of Philosophy and Opinions, I would read it very fast. Um, the time has come for the black man to forget and cast behind him his hero worship and adoration of all other races, and to start out immediately to create and emulate heroes of his own. We must canonize our own saints, create our own martyrs, and elevate the position of fame and honor of black men and women who have made their distinct contributions to our racial history. You get the point? Doing that over and over, sometimes it would take hours to be able to read several of his speeches. I might take one of his speeches, or I might take the disciples of the Alma Marcus Garvey. So I have tapes that have um, the great leaders in the UNIA that supported the Alma Marcus Garvey. I've got Henrietta Benton Davis. I've got William Ferris. I've got Reverend Eason. I've got other, other leaders of the UNIA who said things about the UNIA that were positive, who said things about the Alma Marcus Garvey that were positive. So it really ingrained in me a sense of love and commitment to the Alma Marcus Garvey and the UNIA, because I've heard these men and women who were committed to the principles of the UNIA over and over and over again in my head. Or I heard the Alma Marcus Garvey saying and teaching the principles over and over and over again until it's almost second nature. And the point is that you can develop your elocution to the extent that whatever cultural style that you might have, you can overcome it if it's a handicap to you. I mean, the Alma Marcus Garvey, he spent so much time practicing his oratory until, whether he spoke to somebody from Jamaica or Africa or the United States or Canada or Europe, they heard and they understood and they were impressed by how he spoke, to the extent that even J. Edgar Hoover of the FBI said how great an orator Marcus Garvey was. And many other white men and women who heard him speak were impressed, because he spent so much time practicing. And so I would suggest that for our brothers and sisters who want to be great speakers, because this program of the Universal Negro Improvement Association African Communities League, you really have to sell it. You really have to promote these ideas among the people. And so you have to know the ideas, and you have to be able to articulate the ideas in the program of the UNIA if you're going to attract members into your division, if you're going to attract the masses into the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League. And Amy and Amy Jakes and others have talked about the need for men and women who were able to go out and bring in membership into the UNIA. And it won't be because the Alma Marcus Garvey was a great man. There will be some. You'll get a few people who will join the UNIA because of the Alma Marcus Garvey and not because of you. But if you want it to be because of you, you have got to be able to tell the story and tell the story well. That's my contribution to the subject of elocution.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You make some interesting points there. Practice is what I took off from there, and also every member must know what it is that we're about and what we're teaching, and they are going to be the reason why people join the UNIA. I know people look to me as the president of the UNIA in London, But I always say to the members that, you know, you have to do the work too. One man can't be the island. We all must play our part. Every last one of us has to play our part. And if we want liberty, you yourself must strike the first blow, as the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey said. So, great points there, Shaka Barak. Great points on elocution.
Thank you, my brother. And you're absolutely right.
But going back to when you're talking, Garvey was talking about, you mustn't shiver from their glaze. You must make them shiver from yours. And the only way you can do that is if you believe in it. You're not going to be able to speak to people and stand there glaze if you don't believe in what you're saying. And the only way you're going to believe in something is if you know it, because belief is doubt. You have to know something if you're going to talk about something and convince people to the way of life that we're trying to project to the people. Sister, you say you have a question. Okay, when you're ready, sister, you can fire
I'm
away.
here. Sorry, I'm just multitasking. Yes, I had the question. Great Garvey Day to everyone.
Great Garvey Day.
Hello, greetings. I don't know if elocution is something that's for everybody. So I guess my question is it something that is naturally inbuilt in people? Can you learn to be a great speaker? And what did you all do to become the speakers that you are today?
Well, you can learn public speaking. There are thousands of books on public speaking. You can learn almost any subject under the sun. Um, but are you willing to practice? Are you willing to improve and get better at whatever it is that you seek to learn? So you said you don't know if you can develop um, and become good at um, presenting your ideas or elocution. But in the teachings of the Honorable Marcus Garvey, he tells us that's what he did. He practiced. He entered debating contests. Now you not only have to be able to speak well, but you have to have the ability to argue. You have to know the logic that is being used and that is being expected of you in delivering your argument. Lawyers do it, and salesmen and women do it. And the Honorable Marcus Garvey was a master at being able to debate. And lastly, we all start out as uh, children of our mothers and fathers and whoever takes care of us, learning how to speak. The earlier you learn how to speak, because your parent is teaching you how to speak, how to uh, how to develop your uh, knowledge of the alphabets, how to count, and some have parents that teach them so well, so thoroughly, and so consistently that by the time they enter school at before they enter school at 2 and 3 years old, they know how to read. So a lot of children do not learn how to read until they enter school, but some whose parents work with them in the preschool years can help them develop uh, their skills in the early ages, because science has demonstrated that a child will develop 50% of their learning ability in the first 4 years of their life. 50% is developed in the first 4 years of their life. So those parents who understand that in the first 4 years of a child's life, his brain is like a sponge, or her brain is like a sponge. It wants to suck up knowledge and suck up information. It wants to see colors. It wants to hear sounds. And so they take advantage of what is natural in the makeup of their child to give the child an advantage. And so those children oftentimes do very well, not only when they enter school prepared, enter school to go through it successfully as an A student. Some A students, some children have become A students in elementary school, students in high school, and A students at the university level, because the early head start, the early advantage that they were given prepared them for all the rigors that they would have to take during school. So some take advanced placement math, advanced calculus, advanced physics. They don't just take the ordinary classes that the other students take. They take advanced classes so that they can, master the subjects that they're taking. And the Alma Marcus Garvey encouraged us to develop a race of scientists par excellence. So, yes, everybody has the ability. They're born with the ability to absorb knowledge. How well they do it depends on sometimes the early stages of their life and the help that they get in the early stages of their life. Um, and sometimes later on in life, when they find there's something that they want to master, something they want to learn, they'll put the time and the energy into it that is required to be able to master that thing. And speaking is one of those things that can be mastered.
Yeah, I want to speak to that too, sister. Um, we're looking at the course of African philosophy, which is meant for future leaders or leaders, period, for the UNIA. And everyone may not be an officer, but everyone is responsible for taking the lead in some way in spreading the message. And so sometimes the urgency of our plight, our situation, conditions force us to be thrust into that responsibility of having to go before the public. Sometimes if you staging an event and the speaker is running late or doesn't show at all, what are you going to do? Say, well, I can't speak, so I'll just, tell everybody go home. You want to have to fill in. So there's going to come times, even if it's uncomfortable for some people to be public speakers. Everyone doesn't have the resounding voice of Brother Shaka and can speak with thunderous voice and that thing. But you still can deliver an effective message if you have the certain techniques of how to speak effectively. And so training is important. But also, when I first started speaking, one thing I noticed I had to do was to develop an alter ego. Same way in other things that I tried to master. When I started, kickboxing, I transformed into Bruce Lee or Muhammad Ali or whoever I wanted to be. Whenever I was in the ring, and sparring with somebody, you can't hit me, sucker. I'm the greatest. Come on, and I was ready, doing my thing because, I became them in order to get my, self together. Same way, if you hear or see great speakers who speak with a certain style and eloquence rather, you can begin to kind of see yourself as them and transform similar styles and take some things from them to become a more confident person. Because again, not because you want to be the great leader and everybody with all the photo ops and eyes on you, but because you have to. Because the situation may demand that you be the one to make the message and deliver it. And elocution is not just before a great audience all the time. Sometimes just a small group that you have to deliver this PowerPoint presentation to a group of teachers, or who would want to understand what Mr. Garvey's philosophy is about and how it affects or applies to the youth. Just having a small targeted group, sometimes you still have to speak. But one of the other things that not only having an alter ego helped me develop speaking chops, but also starting by speaking to smaller groups. When I would, if you have a study group, for example, you have 15, 20 people, and everyone's talking, and just like us on the phone or the call right now, podcast, you can have a small group of people that you're comfortable talking with and around, and the more confident you feel in talking to them, is the audience starting to broaden. You're going to feel just as confident talking to 30 people, 40 people, as you were talking to those 5 people sitting at home, around the living room. The same way, you will talk to 10,000 people with the same message, but having this alter ego and having this kind of, way to develop your skills, starting small and working your way up. Sometimes it's useful in developing that craft of elocution. And there's a lot of other techniques that come along. Mr. Garvey talked about getting a book on elocution. I started studying. I remember when I was with Jehovah's Witnesses, we had to go to theocratic ministry school. Not had to, but many of us were zealous enough that we chose to go to theocratic ministry school. So they would teach you like sense stress modulation, blah 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 blah, how to deliver, how to gesticulate. I remember one time I had delivered a presentation, and it was, I've been studying hard and long, and the elders of the congregation were watching me, and I had to do my delivery. And by the time they finished, they gave me a grade, and they said, "Well, it was good. In fact, it was perfect." I'm like, "Thanks," but see, that was the problem, though. It was too perfect. It was too polished. Almost like you were rehearsed, and blah blah blah. So sometimes you got to be a little more loose about things, and flow a little differently. But I'm like, too perfect. But there's always some criticism. There's always room for learning from what you did or didn't do last time, and how this kind of received better than that did, and knowing your audience and all these things. Like, it comes with time and experience. But Mr.
Well,
Garvey
I came up under my mentor, and when I first came to the UNIA Division 429, the president of the division, he opened up the meetings, and then we did this, that, and the other. Maybe something from Philosophy and Opinions. We read that, and we did other things, and then we raised our offerings, and then closed out. So pretty soon, I saw what he was doing, and we all had a copy. Each meeting, a copy was made available, and hopefully you kept your copy of the ritual. So I saw that the prayers that he was using were in the ritual, but it was prayers that he had memorized. Uh, uh, Other speeches by the Honorable Marcus Garvey, he had memorized. He had a long list of poetry that he could recite from memory. And all of that aided him in speaking. But what happened was, I wanted to make the objects and aims of the UNIA mine. I wanted to make the preamble to the Constitution of the UNIA mine. So I started seeing the things that my president was saying from memory as things that I wanted to be able to say. Because he said it with conviction. He said it like he meant it. And that's the way I wanted to be able to present what was in our Constitution, which explained what we were about. So I started volunteering at the division to say the things that my president had been saying. Eventually, it led not only to a promotion to a higher or an office, first of all, and then at the next election to a higher office. And so I went from third vice president of the division to second vice president of the division, first vice president of the division, commissioner, et cetera, et cetera. So if you are members of the division and you have access to our rituals, to our songs, to our prayers, if you have access to your Constitution and all the material that's in there, then make that information yours like it belonged to the Honorable Marcus Garvey. Then you are stepping into his shoes as the president of his division, because you can imagine that everything that is in that ritual, everything that was in that Constitution, he knew and would practice going over it and over it. And as I said, since the UNIA met every week, and then sometimes he would have additional meetings that he would attend or that he would hold in different parts of the city or in different cities. So not only is he going over the material every week or once a week, but if there was a business meeting, some of the same material was used in the business meeting. So now that's 2 times a week that you're meeting and you're using the material from the Constitution, or if it's a Declaration of Rights, you're talking about that. If it's some other issue, the material that you have, you get to master it at some point because you use it over and over again. I'll give you one last example. One day I was asking my president, because they would always ask me to do the ritual. They would always ask me to pray because they knew I knew the prayers in our rituals by heart. And so I said, well, Mr. President, I said, how about you doing the prayer? I said, you never do the prayer. We'd like to hear you pray. He said, well, what I do is I don't pray that well, so I get somebody else to do the prayer. And so I didn't believe it. So I encouraged him, come on, pray for us. And he did. And guess what? His praying wasn't that bad. The UNIA's prayers and rituals, it aligns with our belief in the principles of the UNIA. It talks about direct us, O Lord, in all our doings with thy most gracious favor, and furthers us with thy continued help, and in all our work begun, continue to end in thee. We may glorify thy holy name and find by thy mercy, obtain everlasting life through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. And it says to guide the president, general, and members of the High Executive Council and all others that have authority in serving our people. So this is not just a prayer like you would find in a church. This is a prayer for the UNIA. This is a prayer about the UNIA. These are prayers and rituals and songs that will help the UNIA grow and develop and its membership to become strong and stronger. And so it's not ordinary prayers. And so if we practice whatever it is that needs to be done in our divisions by being willing to stand up and try it Even if you've never prayed before, if you've never explained the objects and aims, give it a shot. If you've never explained the preamble, give it a try. And what you'll do is you'll get better and better at it. And eventually, people will want you. They'll call on you. They'll expect you to stand and deliver, but never shy away from an opportunity to stand before the people and deliver the same message to them that our founder, the Alma Marcus Garvey, delivered to them. Thank you.
Thank you for that. That makes a lot of sense, and it's sensible, and it only makes it just kind of confirms, practice makes perfect, but you have to start somewhere. So yeah, I guess everybody, I think we're all greats and giants, but we can show that if we practice what we preach. So yeah, I really appreciate that, and that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
You're welcome, my sister. Thank you, Brother Morima.
Yeah, and I will also add on there, saying the same thing I was saying before, that once you know what you're saying, you have confidence in what you're saying. And if I can speak, anybody can speak. Because trust me, I never had no training in this. The President General mentioned that, when you have to look at a good speaker, you kind of emulate them for a time, and then you take on your own style and you own that. It's like learning a kung fu style. You learn the stances, and then you create your own stance from it. A good kung fu man, he creates his own style based upon the style that was given to him. So you owning that knowledge, and then you'll be able to deliver it in different ways. But I believe everybody can speak. We all have a voice, and we're supposed to use that voice to reach our people.
And sometimes, President, Division, President, Commissioner, if you have new members and you want to know if they can speak, ask them. Say, Sister so and so, I need you to read from page so and so, paragraph 1. And then you listen to them read. And you may find that you've got a great orator among you. Or you may find that they are willing to read because you asked them to, and they did a good job at it, but they could improve if they did it more often. And so every time you get a chance, you would say, would you read for us? And if you are the leader, there is no question as to whether they will or will not. Because what is really important in the UNIA is obedience, because you're asking somebody to do something that will benefit them and benefit your division or benefit your district, because there's so much information that has to be shared during a UNIA meeting until the president of the division can't do it all. He can't say it all. And sometimes the sisters of a division or the guests who may be visiting the division may want to hear from a sister. Maybe they want to know that it's not only brothers that understand this, but sisters that understand it as well, so that they can have, a relationship with sisters who can help them and strengthen them in their understanding. I remember one time I went before a group of ministers, and they gave me an opportunity to talk about the Alma Marcus Garvey and his life and works and the principles of the UNIA. And when I got through, one of the ministers said to me, "Do you have a minister, a reverend of the cloth in your organization? Because if you do, that person might be able to help us understand um, the spiritual side of the Alma Marcus Garvey and the UNIA." So just as there may be women who feel comfortable around other women who are teaching the principles of the UNIA and explaining the life and works of the Alma Marcus Garvey, there may be other groups of men and women who want to know that the UNIA is broad enough that it's not only uh, got women in it that can articulate the principles, but they might want to hear, because they want to bring their children in. Do you have youth that can articulate? Do you have teenagers that can articulate? Are any teenagers benefiting from attending the meetings of the UNIA? And they can show that they're benefiting, because if they're asked to stand and deliver, if they're asked to share something about the UNIA or the history of the Alma Marcus Garvey, they can stand and share that. Or do you have somebody of different economic backgrounds or different professions that do you have teachers inside of the division? And if so, then maybe a teacher who's thinking about joining may feel more comfortable when they're, when they know that they're going to be around other educators, because then it becomes a question of, for them, well, if you got other educators, maybe we can work together to help plot out a strategy on how we can develop an educational program, so that when the youth come in, or when different entities come in, we'll be able to work together because we're both educators. So the leader tries to get everybody capable of being able to say the same thing inside of a meeting of the UNIA that leader can say. Make sense?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 100%.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I was going to just mention quickly that that was a good point too. Brother Shaka was making that we never want to refuse an opportunity to bear witness to our faith in cells and to our program and the philosophy of Most Honorable Marcus Garvey and his vision. But also we'll learn in time that those who may have known you when you weren't necessarily a Garveyite, those who knew you, maybe when you were in the street, homeboy chilling, knew you maybe when you, were more in the church or more in the crime or more into some other thing. And now they see you as a Garveyite and they want to, see what you're talking about. If you really believe what you're talking about, or you just get with nitwit trying to join some other thing, or are you really convicted about what you believe? And when they begin to hear you and see you, it kind of like, Malcolm, when he used to be hanging out in the street, Detroit Red, the man, he's doing his thing, slick talking. And now they see him on stage speaking strong and loud and proud about, what he's doing. People sometimes become inspired by that. They become, wow, this did this so much for him. I wonder what it'll do for me. Because this one used to be shy. She'd never speak in public. Or this, brother over here, man, he would never do this. So sometimes you, in bearing witness, you also giving a testimony that will inspire others to do greater things. Ahead. Mr. Garvey used to say that the pen is mightier than the sword, but the tongue is mightier than them both put together. And you can get a whole lot more done just communicating with people, again, on stage and off. Because a lot of elocution is knowing your audience, before you get there, knowing what the people are thinking about, what's on their mind, and how they feeling about a particular given situation or topic. It may, cause you to kind of redirect your presentation to fit some of their needs or concerns. At the same time,
Let me give an example of that. If you are an officer in a division and you are given opportunities, as Morima has said, to speak and to articulate the principles of the UNIA, the objects and aims of the UNIA, the preamble of the UNIA, and what we envision for Africa and Africans at home and abroad, you might have an opportunity not only to speak at a UNIA function or to speak at the division, you might have an opportunity to go into the um, synagogues, the cathedrals, the mosque, where other African people might be, and and they would allow you to not only come in there because you speak very well, you can articulate the objects and aims of the UNIA, which are generally going to be acceptable everywhere. You can help in that president of the division or the commissioner by being able to go and win friends to the UNIA in whatever camp you go into. If you are prepared, and as the commissioner said, if you are knowledgeable of the subject, so that you can uh, look that audience in the eye and convince them. The Honorable Marcus Garvey said one time, when he had been shot, they were trying to get him to rest. And he assured them that it would take more than a 38 bullet to kill Marcus Garvey. He said, in fact, he said, if a lion was to come on this stage to attack the principles of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, I would charm that lion before I allowed that lion to destroy our principles. So, yes, be strong and courageous and prepared enough that you can go before and stand before anybody or any group, anywhere in the world, and teach to them the principles of the Universal Negro Improvement Association. And believe it or not, that's what we need now. We need people who can take the principles to the far corners of the earth where our people are and articulate those. But more importantly, is that the Honorable Marcus Garvey is under attack. There are those who have thought that the UNIA would die. They thought that his ideas would never resurface. And we have to prove to the world that they who thought that were wrong by articulating his principles, by, again, being Marcus Garvey personified. But again, it will only come through practice. And the more opportunities your president and your commissioner gives you to practice at the UNIA meetings, the better you'll get at it. And you'll be able to relieve him from always having to do everything. And then he can concentrate on some other things because he knows you will open up the meetings. He knows that you will explain the objects and aims of the UNIA. He knows that you can cover the preamble. He knows that you can cover other aspects of the laws of the Universal Negro Improvement Association. You can go through philosophy and opinions and take out some of the gems that are in there, or go into more philosophy and opinions and take out some gems that are in there, or Marcus Garvey and the UNIA papers, or Garvey and Garveyism, just wherever he needs you to go, because he may have set up the meeting in such a way that he's expecting a particular group of people, a particular audience to come, or you're going somewhere where there's a particular audience that you'll be speaking to, and he will need your support. So he's not saying everything. They may give the UNIA an hour, they may give the UNIA 2 hours. And so with you on his team and you by his side, he knows that you'll be able to, when you're called upon to do your part, you'll do it and do it well. Thank you, Morma.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. That wisdom. Yeah, I was just thinking as we were talking about a particular incident, not really incident, but one lesson I learned from one of my elders who had, he had been in, different African centered, groups and religious movements over the years, but in the process of doing certain things, he had noticed an estrangement from his missus, who wasn't so much into it and who was feeling, he was more concerned with other things than her. So anyway, he was telling me that one thing he wanted me to do as I was growing in the UNIA was to mention my wife every time I speak, whether she's there or not. Just let people know I'm a member of a family, and that I thank her for whatever. So I started that habit. Every time I speak, when I open up, I thank everyone for coming out. I thank all people for inviting us to speak, and I like to also thank my wife, who's not here with us today, but she's holding down the family and blah blah blah. And just on one occasion, particularly, a woman after the program came up to me and said, "I just joined tonight," and he said, "I'm gonna tell you why I joined, because I just recently got divorced, and my husband, would never, do this or do that. It's just the fact that you loved and respected your wife enough to mention her, that meant everything to me. I almost got in tears, So just based on simple things, sometimes it resonates deeply with the people. People again, are not easily fooled about people who are not really genuine about a certain thing. So when they can relate and feel the sincerity in what you say and do, and as well as not just in, incidents like that, but because organizing is one person at a time, and so the purpose of speaking is not just to say we did it, but to actually bring people around to understanding who they are, what our condition is, and what collectively we can do to solve that problem through the UNIA. That's the aim of speaking as an officer in the UNIA. But having the genuineness and again the sense of urgency. I think Brother Shock and I talked before, quite often, and we kind of borrowed the expression from Frederick Douglass, who once said that the Republican Party was the ship and all else is the sea. But in to a Garveyite, the UNIA is the ship and all else is the sea. And when you look at, imagine the whole race being in the ocean, floating around trying to survive, and you on this big ship and you trying to save everybody. That's an urgent message. Same way if it was a big flood you saw coming to a valley, and the valley was going to get flooded and everybody was going to die, and you had to come deliver a message. You don't have time to be playing games and all this and things. You come in with a direct, urgent message. Look, you all have to listen. You got to get out of here. This thing's going to kill everybody. Let's do it. But you have to be, you don't have time to, wonder sometimes if everything is perfect when you present. You just got to present with enough conviction and seriousness that they will really listen. And, people can read that, into your spirit. So it's important sometimes when we talk that we see the importance and the necessity of what we're saying to save the lives of countless members of our race if we deliver it strong and passionately enough. And so, we don't always have the luxury of waiting till we're a perfect deliverer to give a message, but give a message any kind, any way and time you can, and always, the best message is an example. Mr. Garvey always taught in precept and example. So being that example that you want others to practice and follow teaches more than that's the first public speaking. It's your appearance, how you present yourself, so yeah, be convincing in action as well as in words and deeds. Be convincing with deeds as well.
Yes, sir. You mentioned some powerful things there. I like that analogy about the UNIA as the ship. Yeah, I'm gonna have to take that one, Elder. You might hear that in my next speech. But yeah, no, definitely. And I like the fact that you mentioned your wife. That's powerful, because a lot of the time, we don't. You know what I mean? It's just us fighting the fight. And even if they're not fighting the fight, we must acknowledge them, because we chose them. Do you know what I mean? No one ever forced you to pick your woman. You know what I'm saying? No one ever forced you to pick your man. You chose them. So, acknowledge them, and it might strengthen them even to join the great fraternity and do the great works. So yeah, that was powerful. That was powerful. We're coming up to the last 25 minutes now. So I don't know if there's anything anybody else wants to add. My brother Reese first, you might be quiet. I don't know if you got anything to add.
Not in particular. I think everyone's spoke well and gave valid points on elocution and all manner of other things. So I like to say, yeah, it's been a good session. I've learned some things for my own self as well, in terms of the science of breath, clear nostrils, good teeth, you know, looking into the people's eyes, and not being afraid to speak with the passion and the eloquence you need. So I think everything's been covered, and that's all I've really got to add. Great Garvey Day.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, you know, we have to speak with that confidence, because you know, without confidence, we've already lost, and with confidence, we've won even before we tried. That's the great quote, but we live to that. You know, the world is run by a bluff, you know. So sometimes you may not think you can do something, but many a times I've bluffed my way into situations in life. I've gotten jobs off of a bluff. You know, if you believe it, how can they tell you it ain't true? You gonna have to put me to the test. So you know, the world is run by a bluff, but you must be able to deliver, brothers and sisters. Once you get that opportunity, you have to be able to deliver. Do you know what I mean? So never count yourself out. There's nothing that you can't do. Anything that man has done before, you can do it, for man has done it before. There's nothing stopping you to be, even in your personal life, whatever you want to do, go for it. Don't talk yourself out of it. You know, if you want to open a business, if you want to take opportunity and you're thinking, boy, can you do the work? You're unsure, go for it. Just know what it is you're doing. With knowledge of the thing, you'll be able to conquer that thing. And I think that's been my main point for this whole thing, is to know what you're talking about. If you don't know what you're talking about, then maybe don't speak. You know, we've covered this in the last topic, because the person who knows more about that thing will make you look like a fool. But in terms of just giving yourself a chance, take that chance. Take it every time you have an opportunity in your life to better yourself. Take that opportunity. Don't doubt yourself. Just take it with both hands and hold on to it. And don't let go until you own that. You know, that's all I can say to you on that. Do you know what I mean? But yes, you know, just believe in what you're saying. Study it. That's the main thing. Like, study whatever it is, even if, like, you know, like you get some Christians, they you start talking to them and you start putting some questions to them and they don't know what the hell you're talking about. You know more about Christianity than they do. You know what I'm saying? So it's not about that. You got to know when someone comes to you about Garvey or the UNIA, you must know it. And if you don't know it, you better get to that knowledge and know that knowledge. So next time someone comes to you about that, you can say, nope, this is it. Boom, 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 boom. This is how it went, and etc. Because that's what it's about. You know, get knowledge wherever you can get it. You know, we are blessed to have the President General on the call. You know, we're blessed to have Shaka Barak, you know, pass through on the call, and they have a wealth of knowledge. You know, we must take that information and use that information for our betterment, for our advancement, for our progress. Do you know what I'm saying? Because that's the only way we're gonna improve. And as we said already, the Universal Improvement Association. So that means that we have to be improving ourselves, as the elder said last week. You know, we got to improve ourselves. We've got to become the best black man or the best black woman as an example for our brothers and sisters around the world, or even in our own family, even in our own community. First, it starts in your family, then it's to your community, and then it's to the whole wider community. So, you know, these are very important things. We have to lead by example, and we have to lead with, you know, with the right example, because we have the right teaching. So if we're behaving in a manner that doesn't match, it's going to destroy the work that we're trying to do. You know, the elder mentioned that when you come from a different life and you've transformed, many people will come to say, wow, that sister was shy before, or that brother was shy before, and look at that brother now, or that sister now. Do you know what I'm saying? So that will inspire other people, because ultimately nobody is greater than the other. We're all on the same level. Like, this is not a church where we have a parson or a pastor up front and he's right and exact and no one else is right. No, this is Garveyism. From you have that spirit, you're going to be right and exact. And when you talk to people in the community, you'll be able to win the hearts and souls of our people just by your genuineness, just by your knowledge on certain things and things of that nature. So that's kind of what I got from this chapter, and that's kind of what I got from this whole book. In fact, do you know what I'm saying? Is to know what you're saying and go out there and improve your conditions. Be the leader that you want. Don't look for another leader outside. Be that leader. We got brother Stephen in the building. Hold on, let me add him to the call. Yes, Mr. Gold, President Golden. How you doing, sir?
Greetings. Great Garvey Day to you all and to your viewers and listeners. Brother Mario Margaret, Garvey Day to you.
Great Garvey Day, sir.
I hope you all seeing me okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sunny islands of Jamaica. We are here in the cold, sir.
Yeah, here in Kingston.
Yes, sir.
Busy day today. One of the major political parties are having their annual conference, and election is in the air.
Okay, we hope that Mark doesn't win. Because that will be a damn shame. I don't even want to get you started either. But
well, he's about to take the platform any moment now. It was interesting to note some of the people who showed up there. Chief amongst them, One Vibes Cartel.
Wow. He did say he was going to run. He did mention something about getting involved in politics.
I was also surprised to see Chief Richard Curry, I hear, was on the platform. I didn't see with my own eyes. It's going on right now, so I had to step away from the television. But I did get a message asking what happened there. But let's see how it goes.
And for those that don't know, Chief Curry, he's the chief of the Maroons.
Yeah, he's chief for the Achampong Maroons. That is what they call them, the leeward or the windward, I'm not sure. But the Maroons based in Saint Elizabeth. It's originally in Jamaica you had 4 Maroon camps led by 3 brothers and a sister, Nani or Nana, Kojo, Achompong, and Kwao. So Chief Curry now presides over the Achompong camp, which also absorbed members of Kojo's camp after the Second Maroon War.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And we were just talking about elocution from lesson 4 in the message to the people, but I would like to let the people know that our dear brother will be in the country very shortly, ancestor willing.
Yeah, man, we're hoping to join you all for Black History Month, or British Black History Month in October. And of course, we've been invited by the Nubian Jack Heritage Trust to speak at the unveiling of a plaque dedicated to our founder, the Right Excellent Marcus Garvey, and his second wife, Mrs. Amy Jakes Garvey, at an address that he resided at in 1928, which was a big year for him, coming out of a prison sentence after it was commuted by the U.S. President Coolidge, and the year that he himself went to the League of Nations in Geneva to continue the UNIA's international petitioning for the rights, the human rights of the African race at that time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And what date is that you will be forwarding to the UK, just so that some viewers who don't know already can be enlightened on that?
I'll be there October 1st until the 7th. That plaque unveiling ceremony at 57 Castletown Road will take place on October 1st at 11 a.m. I hope all the UNIA members will be out there. Come to find out, that address has quite some history. I think Solenke, as well as Lapido Solenke, as well as Malcolm X and Jomo Kenyatta are reported to have also stayed at that address at some point.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, I will definitely be there. I'm not sure how many other brothers and sisters from the fraternity over here will be in attendance. President General, I had to mute you because there was some feedback. So if you're gonna speak, just unmute yourself because we won't be able to hear you. But yeah, I'll definitely be there. I'm due to record it for the YouTube so that brothers and sisters around the world can also see what's going on over there. But yeah, we look forward to welcoming you on the 1st until the 7th. Over here in the heart of Babylon.
Well, the UK, London in particular, had a very pivotal role to play in Garvey's life and his work. It's a city that he returned to time and time again. Um, and I certainly believe it is a city that should give him his due recognition. So anything to promote that. I hear Birkbeck College ran a billboard campaign claiming Garvey as one of their students. It's funny how things change in 100 years, but certainly London did help shape the man he became and the man he was, and it is where he transitioned to join the ancestors in 1940.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. At first, they denied he attended the college or university, and now they got big posters of him on buses, on tubes all over London City, which is good that we get to see, or others get to see the Honourable Marcus Garvey anywhere they go in London. So, regardless of what their motive for doing so is, we do appreciate that the Honourable Marcus Garvey is becoming more visible in London. You mentioned that this is where he started in 19, I don't know, was it 1913, 14? He was over here.
1912, yeah.
Yeah, he was over here. He was traveled the whole of Europe. In fact, he wasn't just London. He was in Cardiff. I'm trying to find out about that as well, where he was in Cardiff, and I know he was in Scotland at some point also.
Mhm.
Our Nubian Jack needs to probably get some plaques all over this place.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. I don't believe where his first resident was on, I think High Holborn or something.
Yeah,
I don't believe there
Holborn.
Holborn. Yeah, I don't believe there's a marker there for him. Um, and certainly, I would love to see even a statue. Hopefully, maybe something in Hyde Park,
Yes, sir.
Speaker's Corner.
Are you going to be attending there?
Uh,
I guess not.
no, well, I have never. I've been to Hyde Park. I'm not even sure where Speaker's Corner is. I did find an obelisk there that was put up by a gentleman named Speaks, and I always wondered if that is where Speaker's Corner actually was. I was later told no. But it's interesting because that obelisk was put up, I think, in recognition to the British explorer who not found, or who the first British explorer to visit the where the White and Blue Nile meets in Ethiopia, right at the border of Uganda or something like that. And I always wondered if that was where Garvey would have spoken, and how significant it would have been that this, an obelisk which is known as an African monument, that he would choose such a place. But I've never had it confirmed. Brother Mariama might know more.
Now, I never heard any of those concerning that particular location. But yeah, it's important to mention too that Mr. Garvey, partly the motivation behind going to London in his later years was because he saw an opportunity to build in London amongst the members of the race there, what he was able to build in Harlem, where the UNIA was formerly headquartered. And so he had a lot of faith in the brothers and sisters over there that, some greatness would come out of his, establishing headquarters there. So we have a lot of faith in our brothers and sisters over there being able to take a strong leadership position and organizing and unifying our race. So, we're hoping the best. We got some strong Garvey soldiers on the call right now. So I see greatness coming.
Uh, yes,
Yeah,
I often wonder also about the work of His Excellency Reverend Richard Tobit, who I think was the UNIA's first ambassador to the court of King James, and took up that position. But I haven't heard much of what occurred during his tenure or his time there, or if he was blocked or harassed by the colonial government at that time, because he certainly is an example of a UNIA officer and executive who was constantly, um, hounded and harassed by the British government, even preventing from entering some of the Caribbean islands he was touring, I think in 21 or 22, even though he traveled on a British passport. So again, an example of the discrimination we faced and the particular, um, you know, targeting of the UNIA to prevent Garvey and the organization from achieving its objectives.
yeah, they did the same thing to the Honorable Marcus Garvey. They banned him from Africa. A lot of people say, "Oh, Garvey never entered Africa," but they don't realize that the colonial powers that be banned the great man from entering the continent of Africa. That's one of the tools or the statement a lot of people use against him. Oh, he talk about all this Africa stuff and he never went. They used to say that to me as well. You've never been, and then I went to Africa. I'm like, what do you say now? What are you gonna say this time? Now I've been there many, many times. What are you gonna say now? They always look for some type of excuse or argument to shut
Well,
down people, but it can't work anymore.
you should tell them to listen to Mother Samad. I've heard her tell stories about Garvey going to Africa in a disguise, but of course, her stories got more colorful as her years increased. We don't know of that or know any proof of it. And I'm certain if Garvey had touched the soil in Africa, he wouldn't have kept that quiet from the members.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're coming up to the last 8 minutes of our study group today, brothers and sisters. So I don't know if anybody wants to add anything before I get everybody to give a last message.
Well, I just wanted to say hello to Brother Steve Golden. I was on a little earlier before you had arrived. How's everything going?
That sounds like Brother Shaka Barak. Sorry, brother, I didn't see your name on I certainly would have greeted you when I entered. But greetings, brother. Greetings.
Yeah, I wasn't here when you came in. I'm coming back. I had been in earlier, and now I'm coming back. So it's
Well,
been a nice program. The subject matter of elocution, I think everyone who talked about the subject um, is exhibiting what happens when you do more and more talking, more and more speaking. You can't help but to get better at it. Uh, Practice makes perfect, perfect practice makes for perfection. So this has been enjoyable. I was pleased to learn that you all meet every Sunday. And I was sharing how that's how the UNIA was under the leadership of the Honorable Marcus Garvey. Under my mentor, likewise, we met every week, which is one of the reasons that usually when a song comes up that we want to do or some part of the ritual, because we were meeting every week, saying those songs and reciting those rituals, singing the songs and reciting the rituals, we had memorized them, and up until this day. So it's been a pleasure. The little time that I did spend, because I didn't come in at the top of the hour, but I did enjoy everything that I heard from everyone. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thanks you for your input. We are honored to have you guys on the call. the wisdom from you guys. You know, it's always a blessing to learn from the wisdom of our elders.
Mhm. I believe the Chicago divisions had a Zoom. Um,
Yesterday, Atlanta,
yes, yes,
Chicago. That's
yes.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
what
hope.
happened was we celebrated the August the 31st, and one of our guests from the Nation of Islam came out and said, "You all shouldn't just limit celebrating the Yom Marcus Garvey in August or in February." And so that made sense to me. So I asked some of the members, "Would you all like to do something every month?" And so they said yes. So we'll be doing something every month because the UNIA is so rich in terms of its history and certainly the life of the Honorable Marcus Garvey that there's something that you can celebrate or commemorate almost every day, 365, right, Morma?
Yeah, absolutely. 365. Yeah, and I guess the more we study, the more we read, the more we develop excitement. We develop zeal, and that zeal gives you that sense of conviction that you need, which is the true source of power, is your conviction. And if just basking in this knowledge and power, you're going to have to share it with somebody. And the more we share, the more we practice sharing in different ways to different people, the more people we reach, the more the world begins to understand our philosophy, our vision, our aims and objects. And, the greater we get to becoming one great universal confraternity is Mr. Garvey envisioned. And to me, that's the source of being great in all that we do is the more we study, the more we commune together, and the more we speak and talk with one another. Um, this objective of ours, of African redemption will come to fruition, which, as I always say, the definition of African redemption is, as Mr. Garvey said, is not only to recover Africa for the Africans, but also to rescue the souls of Africa's sons and daughters from social, political, economic, and spiritual bondage. And certainly we know our people are not making a lot of wise decisions out there. And so they need Garveyism. A lot of people are dying from things Garveyism could have saved them from. And so it's our obligation to spread the word as much as possible. Same way any other group of people like to spread the good news about what they believe. And we need to be sworn to do our best to deliver the word. And the more we do it, the better we'll become.
Yes, sir. You know, I will also add that the people that we're up against, they're doing it every day, every minute, every hour to keep us down. So we must do more, brothers and sisters. I know once a week is a start, so it's a great start, but we must be doing this every day in some shape or form, educating ourselves, reaching our brothers and sisters, doing the great work. You know, it's an everyday thing. That's the only way we're gonna transform when our lives. So when people take up religion, they read the Bible every day or the Quran every day. They're praying 5 times a day. They're learning every day. So we should be doing the same. We should be learning every day, improving every day, because like we said, this is the Universal Improvement Association. So we're improving, or we're seeking improvement in our individual life, as the elder Shaka Barak said last week. You know, so yeah, that's my stance on it. We must continue to develop ourselves in all aspects of our lives. And this is a great way. We're studying the message to the people. Like I've said many times, this was actually the first book I ever read in my whole life. You know, so it's a great start for us. We will move on to many more books as this develops. But the greatest thing is that we're meeting up every week as a family. We're discussing things in brotherhood and sisterhood. And yes, we can't wait for it to more people to join. But I'm gonna let everybody have a last word, and then we're gonna end out, my brothers and sisters. You want to take the floor, brother Stephen, Mr. President?
Thanks, brother, and thanks for having me. And one God, one aim, one destiny to your members there in London, in the UK, and those logging in worldwide. It's funny, as Brother Shaka mentioned, um, the scope of Mr. Garvey's work. Um, it reminded me that I have a project which I'm about to complete. Hopefully, the UK will get the first taste or sample of it, but it's just a small booklet. Well, not small. It's turned out to be 68 pages, entitled "Where on Earth Was Marcus Garvey?" And it's just a calendar of dates and places that Marcus Garvey visited and spoke at over his years, really between 1916 and 1937, and it has turned out to be quite impressive. I mean, even for myself, doing the research and looking at just the breadth of work that Garvey undertook, and the journeys, the traveling, the speaking. You know, this man was a beast or a machine, as they would say. And it's really an eye opener, because if you sit and think about it, in the early 20th century, that work must have been exhausting for one man to undertake. And he was tireless, and he worked ceaselessly, you know. I don't even think, you know, people are prepared to undertake that kind of work right now in the 21st century. And he did that 100 years ago. So, you know, just to add to the Honorable Mario Kamau's comment, and Brother Shaka Barak's comment about, you know, in Garvey's day and how things were done. But this was no ordinary man. This was an extraordinary black man, an extraordinary Jamaican. And so, you know, we put together a little booklet. It's good for children and everybody, just as a salute or homage to his work, and for people to see that this man was a global figure. So hopefully we'll have the first prototypes of it ready when we do come to the UK in 2 weeks, to be able to share with the brothers and sisters.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We look forward to having that. We look forward to seeing you. We're gonna now end. We're gonna let our President General close us, and we'll be back here next week, brothers and sisters.
Greetings again. Thank everybody for coming on and participating. It was definitely, I think, a pretty thoroughly covered subject, as well as great dialogue. You know, so we all got to hear and learn from one another, and look forward to greater things to come by all of us involved. We have a commitment to one another now, having spoke these things in each other's presence, that we're going to keep improving and trying to be our best and demonstrate that to the world, of the gospel of Garveyism. So I want to thank everybody for coming on. Remember, our allegiance should first be to our God, to our family, to our race, and to our nation. And, therefore we should be inspired in all things by the spirit of righteousness in what we do. So with that, I wanted to say that one of our rituals is not by might, no, well, not even the chaplain prayer. I'm going to say that princes shall come out of Egypt. Ethiopia shall soon stretch forth her hands unto God. Except the Lord build a house, their labors but lost at building. Except the Lord will keep the city, the watchman waketh, but in vain. So let us be righteous in all that we do. And thank everyone for coming on. And I close with the motto of the association, the righteous, sacred motto that we all have been saying now for over 100 years and are convicted into realizing. And that's one God,
One God,
one aim,
One aim,
one destiny.
one destiny.
Understand, man.
Thank you.